this is really interesting. I don't really want to go into the whole like NoFap, like I don't really believe a lot of this stuff. So I'm going to tell you my theory, and I'm going to explain why I believe this. So orangutans have this function where the male's face flanges up and they get bigger, they get more muscular, they get more aggressive, and females just naturally want to have sex with them. Lots of females. They're not monogamous. And we thought for a very long time, because people just didn't do studies on them, that males were flanged, they sexually mature, then they flange, and then that's it. And we thought that if they didn't have a flange, they were a female. And we thought that for an extraordinary long period of time. Until recently, when the rainforests and the jungles and all that shit in Indochina have been getting deforested for like palm oil and all that shit, we've started to make these like little, I don't know, I want to say, if you look it up on YouTube, they're called playgrounds. They're kind of like little concentration camps. I'm going to be honest, they're kind of horrible. The people in that region refer to them as jungle people. They humanize them like they're real, like they're humans. They're just jungle humans.
And we got to talk about the orang pendek sometime as well.
You can talk. I don't know anything about that.
Oh, that's just like real quick aside, in Indochina, and I think specifically in Indonesia, they have something called the orang pendek, which they think is a relic Homo floresiensis, where it's a very small red-haired humanoid, bipedal, and they see it, like the villagers and sort of the locals take it as a fact of life. But it's still like unknown to modern science. But that's
cool as shit.
Very good chance. Yeah, there's a very good chance they're real.
Huh. Well, yeah, and exactly going into that is that we tend to treat other hominids as like they're like dumb monkeys, but any sort of like animist culture pretty much reveres them as if they were humans. And orangutans are the only hominid that have human blood types, and they're exceptionally intelligent. They use tools much more intelligently if they're taught, and they can pass the knowledge down to their children too, more than like bonobos or chimpanzees or gorillas or anything like that. They're extremely intelligent, and it's not sort of I see a lot of people when they see this shit where they'll be like, oh well, the monkey only does it because someone trained him to do it. Like, what the fuck do you do every single day? Like, you really think that's not like, I don't like, well, the human only can drive a car because someone taught him to drive the car. Like, that's the argument that they're making, which I don't know.
Have you seen the orangutans that spearfish?
Yeah, there's orangutans that spearfish. Someone taught them to use a saw. Like they use like their feet, hands to like use tools to scrape out
didn't
ants.
One make a key to its cage and escape?
Yes. That literally, I've completely forgot about that, but yes, that 100% happened. And it's like, because it wasn't that sophisticated of a key, but he figured out how to do it, and he unlocked it and he escaped, and they had like footage of it or whatever. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, they're
I have an orangutan story real quick, once again, on the side, because I want to get back to Sonny's line of thinking with this.
Yeah,
I got to tell you something crazy. When I was a kid, and I went to the zoo with my family, an orangutan came up to the glass, pointed at my mom's shirt, which had a flower on it, and then he pointed down at flowers he collected.
Dude, that's awesome.
That was a moment where I was just blown away.
Yeah, man, and it's so fucked. Yeah. It's so fucked that we keep them in like these like little internment camps. Like, we don't even give them the same reverence as like native people of like, you know, of like indigenous Aboriginal peoples. I think it's really fucked up.
It is.
Like, if you go on YouTube, I suggest anyone do this, because what I'm about to talk about, you have to understand this, because if you don't understand this, you're going to be like, well, we're not talking about monkeys, we're talking about humans. That's going to be your sort of line of argument, and then I don't know what to fucking say to you. So you have to go on YouTube and just look up like orangutan zoo. There's a documentary that has a ton of videos, and I think like the first month is free. It's like Discovery or something. It's like an hour each, and it's just like 12 hours worth of content of just videos of orangutans, and you can just see how they interact with each other. They're probably the most sapient animals I've ever seen besides humans. And I think that a lot of them are honestly probably more sapient than like the average. You take an average human, they're probably more sapient and like empathetic and loving and kind. And it's not even, and those aren't even prerequisites for sapience. There are very evil orangutans too. That's what I'm going to get into. So NoFap. There's a lot of studies that claim that masturbation reduces testosterone. Now, I think that this is true in a sense. It's not controlled for porn watching. And porn watching, I think, is very important. Now, obviously, if you just think about this for a minute in like a rational way, it's not going to make any sense. Like, how could just watching porn lower your testosterone levels? Wouldn't it be masturbation because you're, releasing chi, you're releasing like vital nutrients or whatever? And I think that definitely could play a part in it. But I think that people, especially like if you have sex a lot or if you masturbate while thinking about things, you can have an orgasm that doesn't have that horrible after effect, which is what you would call like a sapping of chi. Like there is chi leaving your body. That's what like the post-fap
physically
horrible,
and spiritually.
Yes, physically and spiritually.
That's why you feel so detestable
and
and gross after it happens.
Exactly. And I think that it's definitely possible to masturbate, to have an orgasm, or to even do like the Taoist thing where you please yourself or your partner, but you don't have an orgasm and you don't have that horrible chi feeling. And unrelated to that, sort of esoteric part, with orangutans, we learned that the flanged males are flanged males because they're not around other males. There are no males around them. But when we put them into these internment camps, it's like a mile radius or something where only one flanged male can exist.
What's a flange?
And so a flange is their
big,
face.
Like, face.
Yeah, their face becomes like huge and they get really big. But the flange specifically refers to their face flattening out and becoming really big. If they're not flanged, they look more like just regular, I guess, apes. They look like, you know what I mean? Like they just look like chimps or something, yellow, orange chimps. But when they flange, they have that very unique orangutan look that everyone associates orangutans with. And they're all different. They're all very it's very cool that how much diversity is in those. Like it's very, very interesting. And I think they probably mean something too, in some sort of like physical as is above, so is below sort of sense, because I don't know, there has to be physiognomy with those. I don't know.
It's like the spreading out of a flower. Exactly.
And what happens with them is that we thought, oh, well, that must just be because their testosterone levels are lower. But it's actually not true. The orangutans who are not flanged, their testosterone is not lower. What's different is that their cortisol levels are higher and their estrogen levels spike a lot. They actually have really high estrogen. So to put that in perspective, or to wrap that up, essentially what happens is if a male orangutan is around a alpha orangutan for his maturation, he will still be able to procreate, but he will generally only be able to do it, not even generally, it's only been observed this way, by cornering females and raping them, essentially.
Oh, this is what you were talking about today.
Yes. So I thought it was really important. With the flanged ones, the females just sort of feel comfortable around him. They always are around him. They always will, he has a lot of wives, essentially. And the other orangutans just kind of hang around him, and then they'll wait for their chance to be near one of the females that the flanged male is, and they'll corner her and rape her, or they'll do it through some sort of like coercion, or just, it's not a willing reciprocal sexual thing. And what I think is really interesting is, think about this. If orangutans were humans, like just imagine that they were 150 IQ, they could do everything that humans can do, they had society, and the internet just got invented with orangutans. And up until this point, orangutans live 1 mile away from each other. When you reach sexual maturity, your son goes off into the wilderness and he flanges like a good boy, and then he gets wives, and that's generally how it's supposed to go. Imagine if they had internet, and imagine if they were exposed to orangutan porn, where they had to, not even had to, but where they get sexually stimulated by watching orangutan males fuck, like flanged orangutan males fuck orangutan females. And this is actually something that happens with orangutans. The unflanged orangutans will watch the flanged orangutans fuck the female orangutans. And this increases their cortisol, this increases their estrogen, and it completely saps the desire for them to breed. They essentially have no desire to procreate at this point. And there's not really much that they can do until the flanged male dies, and then there's like a little power struggle, and whoever becomes the dominant one flanges, and then the cycle repeats. If they were able to go out, they'd be able to flange, right? And I think this is a very good parallel to humans, because they're very similar to us, and this can't be understated. And I think that with porn, most people, as much as they don't want to admit it, I mean, I see a lot of people on these circles talking about like, oh, I only jerk off to hentai. I only jerk off to guys fucking girls drawn. Like, I think that's still doing something to your psyche, and it's probably doing something to your like cortisol levels. It's probably doing something to your hormonal levels, and I don't think that can be understated at all.
Yeah, that's funny.
I've noticed that the people. Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, it's an anecdote. Is I haven't watched porn in ages, but even when I did, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, it was always a solo female. And I always felt like watching a guy do it to a woman it just made me feel gross. And it wasn't like, oh, dick, on screen. It wasn't something like that. It was like it is like I was having something drawn out of me and taken by someone else. And so I was never attracted to the idea of watching that. But if it was just a woman on the screen, that's different. Because then she's just like, it's more, I don't know, it was more inviting, didn't feel so dynamically weird.
To this day, yeah. What attracts me a lot is still like those 1950s pinups, like the ones that they had in Playboy. I know,
like the ones they used to put on the side of like a plane or something.
Not those as much as the ones that Playboy ended up coming out with. Like, I just think that whatever psyops may have been going on back then, the actual look of the 1950s females, like with that curly hair and the eyebrows and the lipstick, it was kind of like a Western geisha or something. It was a very specific look, almost like a flower girl. You know what I mean? Like the hairs was kind of like, it was nice. It looked really good. And there is something to that where, okay, so that's also something that's attractive. Let's say next step, they're naked. Where would the line, like, the Victorians were covering the, I believe they were covering the piano legs because they were supposed to be eroticized. So where is the line drawn? Or is it just like a gradient where every little bit more skin that's introduced, the more power is going to be sapped, and the less you're going to be able to, Well,
I think it has less to do with the iconography itself, and it's more to do with what you're doing with it, because you can even look upon a naked figure. You can go to a museum and look at statues, and there are plenty of statues of naked women there. You can look at artwork of women lounging in various states of undress, and I don't think that that's going to damage you in any way. Again, it very much comes from how you react to that, how you are in possession or not in possession of your faculties, and what decisions you make.
That's a good point.
I think it definitely has to. I think definitely the most poisoning thing, I think, would be like watching, like, or even just seeing drawn men fuck women. I think that is because in orangutans, that's specifically what stops them from having sexual maturity, flanging, developing like confidence. Because it's funny, because the way they act is completely different than flanged males. Like in the internment camps that they have, I like calling it that, in the concentration camps that they've built for the orangutans, they have flanged males that they've retrieved from the forest, and they interact with each other in like a very like normal way. But the unflanged males are fucking like, they're crazy, especially the ones born in captivity, because they're subjected to watching these flanged males just have all these women and have sex with them. And if they were like technologically advanced and had the internet, I think that them watching orangutan porn, even if they were 10 miles away from the nearest flanged male, would still sap their ability to develop that flange. And I think what you see now with porn being so popular, especially because I've noticed that one of the memes on 4chan, and I don't know if it's other places, but people will say like, oh, watching lesbian porn will make you gay, or watching softcore stuff will make you gay. I've seen that like a lot. And then, but it's the people that are saying it are saying that, oh, I just self-insert as the guy, I self-insert as the guy, self-insert as the one doing the fucking. And I'm like, okay, but are you really? Because it's not like,
anecdotally, I've never found that to be true. I've found the opposite to be true. The guys who are like, yo, bro, look at like the Gooners that we always joke about. Yo, bro, look at her. She's getting fucked, bro. She's getting fucked so hard. And they're always like,
what are Gooners?
Gooners are a Reddit. Once again, we're going back to the darkness of Reddit. Gooners are a culture of men who get into video chat rooms and they all jack off to hardcore pornography, and they call each other pornosexual. They actually came up with their own terminology. They say, oh yeah, oh bro, I'm pornosexual. Yeah, I that's my sexuality, bro. And they sit there and they all jerk off together in a big horde of coomers. It's just horrific. And if you ever get the chance to see it, which I don't recommend,
but if you want to, there's tons of Discord servers. Just look it up because it's horrifying. There's also a lot of YouTube videos that go into
like
it, and
MK
people
Ultra.
like infiltrating them. It's literally MK Ultra, and it's funny because hypnosis is one of the things they'll play, like these like porn hypnosis clips. You can go on YouTube and just look up like porn hypnosis or something. It's like, it's so surreal. And the thing is, it seems like a joke, but there's like the community on Reddit that I've seen is so active. It's like mind-boggling. Like, it's like you see, any other porn subreddit, someone posts a picture, once a month or whatever. It's not really active, but these like fucking like porn addict ones, dude, they're just filled to the brim. Like every day there's like posts, like every fucking 5 minutes. It's horrifying. And their Discords are fucking horrifying too. If you're like an internet, if you don't have like if you're very online, just please go look at it, because
be a cyber anthropologist, because it's extremely interesting. You can infer so much from watching them. Like,
exactly.
The demography of the Gooner is super interesting, because what I've noticed is that a lot of them are married guys that are doing it in secret, and they're either inserting their wife and they're into cuckold stuff, or they're just a strange type of man. And to think that so many of them exist, and that it spawned out of nowhere and a bunch of people agreed to make a gooning culture, like, that's just a strange phenomenon. And I think that the orangutan line of thinking, I think there's something there, because
these are unflanged orangutans. That's what they are. But there's a gradient, obviously, where these people all at the far left end are I don't know, they've just accepted it. They're in the internment camp, and they're the ones that watch it and jerk off, because again, that's something that happens. It's recorded. You can find videos of like flanged orangutans mating with or like female orangutans, and they'll just be like 3 or 4 unflanged males just sitting there jerking their fucking orangutan dicks off. But that's what these people are doing, 100%.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And if you remember that BuzzFeed video where they have this theory that testosterone correlates with attractiveness, so they all get their testosterone levels checked.
Oh, I've seen this.
and all of their testosterone levels are under 300.
So if you, just to give context for what you're saying, like, if you don't understand like what testosterone levels like a normal one is, so testosterone is measured in like nanoliters per decagram, I think it is.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's some weird unit of measurement. But anyway, like 300 is like an 80-year-old male. It's
an 80-year-old. You're an old man.
It like not even old. You're like a decrepit, like can't even shit by himself. Like, man, that's the testosterone that these guys have. Like 1200 is like, I think, the average. So 4 times, or like a healthy male would be like 1200 or something.
Yeah.
So these guys are low, like
there's
obscenely low testosterone.
Yeah, and there's a continuum with these guys too, and you can go look at this if you want. You can go be an anthropologist just like I was, because I'm fascinated in fringe cultures online. So even if I don't like what they do, I take a peek sometimes. And the funny thing is that you can literally observe a progression with these Gooners, where they start out first with let's just watch porn with the bros, and then it gets into inserting their wives and female relatives, and then they become the female. They literally start saying, like, I'm gonna wear my wife's clothes, I'm gonna be the sissy, and it's just it actually happens. And the ones who escape, God, if you're like a goon survivor, God bless you. You got out before it got too bad.
See, and if you want to, go ahead.
No, go on. I don't know what I was gonna say. I already forgot.
Well, it's I'm a kind of a Luddite, so I've only recently got into internet anthropology like that. But this kind of thing, outside of even these weird group chat things and even the orangutans and all that, like swinger rooms and group sex clubs and all these kinds of things, where you have people who describe themselves as voyeurs, just sitting on a couch and watching another couple have sex on a bed. It's not uncommon at all. So I mean, this is and I have, there's no reason to think this hasn't been going on forever. So I mean, it's a part of us for some unholy reason.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely like a biological thing that happens in humans. And I think that a lot of people don't want to admit that because they're so addicted to like porn or whatever. But I've even faced backlash for this opinion, because people will just be like, oh, it's just monkeys, or we're not animals like that. Like they'll concede that we're animals, but we're not animals like that. Like, I don't really get it. I think that there's definitely something very serious there, because I think even in bonobos, there's a similar process for the males, even though it's sort of like a matriarchal sort of system that they have. With orangutans, it's not patriarchal or matriarchal. It's just sort of like, it's more similar to humans, I would say, because throughout history, that's always happened. There will be like a top dog, and then there will be tiers below it. And I think the bottom tier in like a sexual way is like the goon caver, the person who lives in the goon cave or whatever. If you go on Reddit and you look this up, goon caves, these people, they have like, they put porn all over their walls. Their entire walls are just filled with porn, and they'll have 6 monitors, and they'll all have porn on it, and they'll go to sleep and they'll be listening to porn hypnosis, and these pictures are fucking, people talk about art being like, oh, I saw this painting from the 1600s about a war I wasn't a part of in Africa, and it was so, just go to goon caves or whatever the fuck it is. You will feel emotions you have never. It's so disgusting.
It's absolutely awful.
It is absolutely awful.